Hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. It is Tuesday, November 5th. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. Today is election day in the United States. I'm only going to briefly talk about it here in the daily brief. Everything else is about Ukraine. I will do a second video where I'm going to look at all the polls and see what they say as we're going into the election today. That'll be a separate video. Some of you don't want to hear about that. Some of you want to hear more about that. So it's going to be a second video after this video. Okay, so let's get on with the war news in Ukraine. 1,260 Russian casualties. What does that mean? 1,271 was the average for the second highest month, that's September. 710 is the average for all time. If you just divide all the casualties, the 700,000 that we just passed yesterday, divided by the number of days, that's about 710 casualties per day. So you're seeing it's high for the average, not as high as what it has been because it's been up to 14, 15, 16, that sort of thing. But it's still moving, and I'll show you why and what they're doing, how they're getting there in just a moment. 15 tanks off the battlefield, 43 armored fighting vehicles, 29 artillery systems, and 41 vehicles and fuel tanks. So it's hot, but it's not as hot as it has been in the past days. This is 2 days ago, Andrew Perpetua's list, and it's about 4-1. This is yesterday. After that, sorry, this was 2 days ago, and this is yesterday's list. And it's, yeah, lots of losses on the battlefield. Mostly Russians are taking it at about 3-1 losses. Okay. Shot down 2 out of 2 KH-59-69 cruise missiles. That's good. They don't have great success with shooting down missiles. 78 out of 79 drones were either shot down or taken down by electronic warfare, and they have a much higher success with that. Russia strikes on an infrastructure object in Zaporizhzhia, 6 people dead, 9 more injured. The hits just keep coming with that, but again, most of what they didn't get through, so that was good night for Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is starting to turn to winter, okay? This is Anton Gerashenko talking about this wet snow and rain in many Ukrainian regions. The temperature at night gets below zero. It's already snowing in Kharkiv. The heating is not on in several cities, and this is going to be a real problem as they move forward into winter with electricity out in many places. The intelligence update from the British. In southern Donetsk Oblast, Russian forces have made advances in several areas along a 20-kilometer wide front. Russian forces have seized control of several small towns and advanced up to 9 kilometers in some areas within the space of a week. These advances follow from Russia gaining control of Vuhledar at the beginning of October 2024. Now, I was surprised that they weren't taking Покrovsk, but they were spreading wide so they could take the highways going toward Покrovsk. But again, winter is going to be Ukraine's friend. It's going to slow the advancement of whatever troops could be moving on the battlefield. Russia continues to prioritize southern Donetsk front lines, maintaining favorable force ratios in this sector, which partly explains the increased pace of Russian advances, despite heavy personnel losses. Russia continues to recruit high numbers to sustain its operations, and we're going to talk about both of those factors here in just a moment. Okay, so Ukrainian forces advanced in Kharkiv Oblast, and Russian forces advanced in Kupian, Crimea, Покrovsk, Kharkov, and Volodar. Now, that's like 5 places that the Russians are advancing as opposed to 1 for the Ukrainians. And you'll see just why that is in just a moment. So here, the Kyiv Post. Russia continues to throw drone operators and other skilled positions into meat assaults. Yeah, they're doing that. Here's the actual article from the Kyiv Post. Who will join the meat grinder? Russia reassigns drone operators, sparking Z blogger criticism. So we're going to read some of this article because it's really informative. The Russian military is reassigning experienced UAV unmanned aerial vehicle operators from ad hoc drone units to frontline assault squads. Well, why would you do that? Well, it's more people that can go assault the front line. It's a short-term win as opposed to long-term thinking. Roman Sapakov, a military correspondent, criticized the decision, saying that many highly skilled drone operators are being repurposed for direct combat roles, resulting in increased casualties. Okay, so in the short term, you have more people for the assault. In the long term, you lose those eyes in the skies that could be helping you with a longer term plan. So, in my estimation, this is great that they're doing that because it ultimately weakens the Russian army's ability to press the advantage. This undermines years of effort of contributions by people across the country. The company of 90, for example, at best, only 20 are ready for assault. So the Russians are in a weakened condition, but they keep pressing. During assaults, UAV support must be seamless. How long will it take to integrate these units with infantry? How many lives will be lost due to gaps in support? So if you take them out, it's going to be much harder for the Russians to be able to press their advantage. And commanders seem concerned about losing their skilled operators, soldiers who can still handle a few more missions and potentially earn them medals. Now, if you're thinking long term as a commander, you're thinking you want your drone operators to be drone operators, not meat wave assaults. But if you're above that and you just need to order more people into the grinder, well, you might not be thinking that way. Now, couple that, so that's making sense of why what they're saying here and why they're actually pressing forward because they're taking men. Now, in fairness, Ukraine has been repurposing some men as well. So it's not just one-sided, but the Russians just seem bent on just taking ground, taking ground, taking ground at all costs. So that's what's going on there. Now, the price of convincing Russians to fight in Ukraine continues to hit records. So if you started the war back in 2022, you're basically not getting a whole lot. If you were getting a $5,000 bonus at about 20 mid 2023. Now it is a $25,000 one-time bonus in order to join the effort. That's significant. It's all supply and demand here. Okay, portion of Russian state budget allocated for Putin's regime for global tea, single largest government expense, and it's rapidly growing. So this is the defense budget, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Okay, in the recent updated maps, Google has made public the locations of Ukrainian weapon systems. Like what? Google, what are you doing? Google is putting updated images on its maps showing the location of our weapon systems. I won't elaborate. The Russians are already actively circulating these images. So great, now they know where to strike. Now, why Google's doing this, again, they want to have accurate information. In a war zone, it might not be the best plan, and Russia's not exactly your friend. A Russian court ordered Google just last week to pay 20 decillion US dollars for blocking media on YouTube, and that actually is, the BBC wrote about it as a Russian court fined Google 2 undecillion rubles. I never even heard of what undecillion is. Like there's 36 zeros, I believe, after the 2 here. That's a lot. That's a huge fine. And why? For blocking certain things on YouTube. Okay, switching gears here, the general mobilization of women is long overdue, says a female soldier who's calling for mandatory mobilization of women. She emphasizes that with current losses, it's crucial to establish rotations. She says the choice is simple: occupation, immigration, or resistance. I chose resistance. Okay, that's great. I'm glad that she volunteered. To have a mandatory mobilization is going to be quite a blow to the national psyche, I think. And I could be wrong about that. Israel has done that, and they've done that fairly seamlessly, but that's a tough bridge to cross. Okay, in Russia, a record number of T-acts has been recorded due to arson attacks and relay cabinets and military enlistment offices. For the first 9 months of 2024, the Ministry of Internal Affairs registered 601 crimes classified as T-acts. This is already 7% increase compared to the total for all of 2003, which previously topped the statistic. So yeah, it's risen pretty significantly here in the last year or two. Russian Railways is planning to reduce the number of freight cars it operates by 100,000. Now, remember, the Russians are far more dependent on their railroads than we are. They use them as major arteries to move things back and forth. And we use them for like shipping major goods and that sort of thing, but it's kind of peripheral. We see trucks on the road quite a bit. Um, Here, it's far more important. With employees leaving the fight in Ukraine and a lack of spare parts due to sanctions, this actually is something to keep your eye on because it could be crippling over time. Russian propagandist has resorted to psychics' predictions to prove Russia was on the right course. So let's watch this. A Bulgarian Vanga who lived in the 20th century predicted that a conflict would erupt in Europe in 2025 that would devastate the continent. If Western politicians do not want to hear the voice of reason from the present, it is highly recommended to listen to at least predictions from the past. Special attention is paid to the prophecy Vanga made about Russia's dominance in the world, and that President Vladimir Putin would become the lord of the world. Well, so far, that predictions are in full accord with Russia's strategic development plan. I, I had to stop there. With Russia's strategic development plan. That's right. That is what Russia's trying to accomplish here. And I just thought that it was sad and humorous simultaneously. Meanwhile, there's a gathering outside the U.S. Embassy in Moscow with models of nuclear missiles on cars with the words, "To Washington," written on them. Charming. Now, I told you I wasn't going to spend much time talking about the U.S. elections in this video. I'll do another one, but this is the right tone to strike. Ukraine respects America's vote and is ready to cooperate with the next president of the United States. Regardless of what happens, Ukraine has to work with them moving forward, and this is the right message. Okay, this is Anton Gerashenko talking about this. Today's election day in the U.S. Outcome of this election will have major repercussions across the world, but curiously, Russia has had little to say so far. What is their strategy? A little bit further down, he says, I think Russia actually does not have a preference for Harris or Trump. Now, I know for a lot of you that is a discordant message. You think that Russia clearly prefers Trump. And I think that might even be true. But listen to what he's saying. What they really want is destabilization of the United States. That's certainly true. They want no clear winner in the election, which would sow doubt in a democratic system and cause even greater division in American society. What they want, more than anything else, is greater division in American society that sidelines the United States. They can do what they want to do. Just because I'm fascinated by drones, here's a Ukrainian drone operator with his drone, just so you can get a sense of the size and the scope of this thing. And then finally, we'll leave you with this, Darth Putin. The supreme art of war is to convince your population you've taken 700,000 casualties against a much more powerful enemy that you're not actually fighting. Okay, my friends, that's all that I have. Look for my election special, which will be coming right up. Look for that. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.